I'm not an engineer. Excuse me. But I've interviewed a lot of engineers. I've interviewed medical doctors. I've read the UN's own reports in my 20 years on air. I've just seen countless mainstream news articles admitting that cell phones have a link to brain cancer and that cell phone microwave radiation vibrates the DNA and basically breaks it into pieces, then causing mutations that causes cancer. But I saw an article last week when it was linked on drudgereport.com. Are cell phones really giving us cancer? CBS News. And I saw the expert there, Dr. Deborah Lee Davis, PhD, MPH, founder and president of Environmental Health Trust. And she's just got a prestigious background advising Congress, the UN, you name it, presidential administrations. Was selected by Time Magazine as a top pick for her book, received a silver medal from Nautilus Books, investigative journalism. I thought, wow, this is a great person to get on to give us her expert take on cell phones, because she's basically quoted here out of the CBS News piece saying, turn it off when you're not using it. I know this. I try to use a wire because I've seen in the studies that not a lot of the radiation travels up that for every inch you get away from a phone, that it basically dissipates by half because the transmission wavelength, this is what engineers have told me, basically loses power for every distance you get away, measured by the length of the antenna. And that's just to kind of put it out there as a layman. She can correct me if I'm wrong, that it's not good to have these up against your head. It's not good for women to be tucking them into their shirt, in their bra. So many women I know carry their phones. It's not something you want to have in your front pocket by your genitals if you're a man. This is something you want to use sparingly, and try to use landlines. And just like cigarettes, when they had doctors in the 20s, 30s, and 40s and 50s saying, I'd walk a mile for a Camel, and, oh, cigarettes are good for your lungs, they knew full well by the 50s it was killing people. They knew earlier than that. So it was a conspiracy theory back then to say smoking was bad. It's now known. So I want to get her expert take on this, because even though I know this, I get on the cell phone too much. Even though I know this, I lose my hands-free wire, and I end up putting up against my head. I go to the mall or the supermarket, the grocery store, and I see so many little children, 6, 7, 8 years old, with cell phones glued to the sides of their heads, and I want to just warn their parents. But then even in my own family, I can't get my family to stop putting them up against their heads. And then we see so many people like, well, Senator Kennedy and others, they thought that was linked to a cell phone. I've talked to so many medical doctors, brain surgeons, who say they're seeing epidemics of tumors right up against the side of the head where people are using their cell phones. So, Dr. Davis, thank you so much for coming on the broadcast with us today.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate your interest.
Well, you've got the floor. What's going on with cell phones?
Well, first of all, as you indicated, most people don't realize that they're two-way microwave radios. And if they understood that, it would make them think very differently about it. But the term that we use to describe the radiation from a cell phone is microwave radiation. Well, it really, industry calls it radio frequency energy. Radio frequency energy sounds like something very nice. After all, radios make music. We all need extra energy. But it's not energy. It's radiation. Now, television towers send radiation out to your television, which receives it. But a cell phone works by sending and receiving microwave radiation 900 times a minute. That's every 900 milliseconds. Whether you're talking or not, so long as that phone is on, if it's in your pocket, if it's in your bra, if it's next to your head, it's sending or receiving a microwave signal every 900 milliseconds. And because of that, it has the ability, as you indicated before, to disturb our DNA, to weaken our membranes, and to cause things that are in our body to be more deeply absorbed. It's interesting, but if people don't believe this is a problem, they should go to our website, environmentalhealthtrust.org, and click on or search for cell phone survivors and non-survivors. There we have videos from people who have suffered the real consequences of using phones in ways that have caused themselves, unfortunately, to have brain cancer. And I think they're very moving stories that people need to hear more about.
Your site has a lot of links to mainline studies. Can we go back to the beginning, cell phones the last 30 years? Because I've talked to former Air Force, Army people who would talk about setting up microwave relay towers in the desert and things to communicate, and how it would end up giving everybody in the team cancer 10 years later, 20 years later, or how they would put food in front of it and heat it up. You know, right. Heat up their beans with it. Well, cell phones are just doing that on a smaller scale, but cumulatively, I mean, we know it's in the studies that it's literally breaking up the DNA, disturbing the cells. It's been in the Time magazine. It's been in the Washington Post. What's crazy is this isn't really even denied, except industry tries to whitewash it. So where is it all going?
Well, let's stop for a second. I think you're absolutely right about, by the way, the old studies from the military. I've talked to guys who used microwave radiation to warm themselves on the deck of an aircraft carrier before they realized that it might be damaging. And that's how they discovered we could make microwave ovens, by the way, is somebody was standing in front of the radar tower and the chocolate in their pocket melted. So the first microwave ovens, in fact, were called radar ranges, because guys who invented them thought it would be really cool to cook with radar. Well, it turned out not to be such a cool idea for women, so they renamed it microwave. It sounded more dainty and more easy to sell to women, which it turned out to be. Where we are with the issue is the following. Microwave ovens cook food, and they use 1,000 watts of power, but the same frequency as a cell phone. So you've got power and you've got frequency. A cell phone is far too weak to cook anything. It has less than 1 watt of power, but it does have the same frequency as a microwave oven. And right away there, we tend to lose people, because it's not the power that's most important with cell phone radiation. It's the nature of the signal that is sent. And the signal is not a steady, continuous wave. It's irregular.
Which is meant to make all the different little particles bounce around, correct?
Exactly. And it works. It works very effectively for many purposes. But what it does, it sends information, it receives information, but the signal itself changes its power density in a 4-second phone call more than 20 times. So it's going 20 times up and down. And it's that up and down, it's that erratic signal, it's that bouncing that disturbs our cellular resonance. Every cell in our body is resonating normally to keep us in place, in balance. And cell phone radiation distracts that normal balance, that normal homeostasis, and it can weaken membranes, whether of the eye or of the hearing nerve or of the brain. And those weakened membranes are then more vulnerable to damage. In fact, cell phone-like radiation is being used now in medicine to enhance the delivery of some drugs into the brain for chemotherapy. So there's even a new field called electrochemotherapy, which uses a different kind of electricity in order to deliver drugs into the body. So we know that a cell phone-like radiation has biological effects. I think the problem we have is a disconnect, which is the title of my book, Disconnect: The Truth About Cell Phone Radiation, What Industry Has Done to Hide It, and How to Protect Your Family. And that book can be found, by the way, on Amazon or even as an ebook. If you buy the cover with the scream on it, then Environmental Health Trust, my nonprofit, benefits from it more.
Everyone should read this book, and I'm going to buy 10 copies, literally, and I'm going to give it to my family and say, let's stop putting the cell phones up to our heads. Or are you recommending just getting rid of them entirely?
No. I do not recommend getting rid of them, because they have revolutionized our ability to respond to emergencies. They have improved our ability to do a lot of things, but we have a right to know. We have a fundamental right to know how to use them more safely. And by the way, I've recently spoken to people, and the glacial U.S. government is responding. After 18 years, they have issued a formal request to ask whether they should change their 18-year-old standards for cell phones. So they're looking at the data, not very quickly, but they've started the process. In addition, if you go deep within your iPhone, you'll find advice now about how to use them safely. If you go to settings on your iPhone, and then you go to general, and from general, you go to about, and then in about, you go all the way down to something most people would never see called legal. You click on legal and it gives you RF exposure information. And there it says, buried in the phone, to reduce RF exposure, use a headset or a hands-free option. And also says, do not keep the phone closer than 10 millimeters to the body, or you can exceed the as tested exposure limits.
Incredible. And in fact, was one of my crew a few months ago pointed that out, that not just on iPhones, but on most droids, in legal, they're covering their butts now.
Yep.
And quietly slipping it in, if you read through dozens of pages of stuff, that, oh, this is something people should be concerned about. What about some of the studies I've seen that some people appear to be more almost allergic to frequency pollution, and so that's why it's worse for other people?
Certainly, there are some people who are much more sensitive to this. It's been very, very difficult to study because the studies have taken people, a very small number, I should say, and looked for an immediate reaction. Some people don't have an immediate reaction. Their reaction occurs within a couple hours when they're finished with the, quote, study. There have been a few studies, one done by Andrew Marino, who's in Texas, where he's looked at a physician who complained of this problem and was able to see changes in her brain and in subtle measures of her nervous system that could not be apparent to her, that he could record when she was being exposed or not exposed. We think that there is a small percentage of people who are quite responsive and reactive to this, but everybody does react in some way. Some people are aware of it, some people are not aware of it. And the problem has been that we have no serious research underway on this issue whatsoever. And that's why what we're calling for is a 2 cents a month campaign. Would you give 2 cents? Would you give 2 cents from the consumer, from the manufacturer, and from the provider to create a massive fund that would exist for 8 years to train doctors and engineers in this field? Because it's a very obscure field in which very few people have training. I spent years working in toxicology and epidemiology, and I knew very little about this issue when I first encountered it when my first grandchild was born. And I became very interested in how bright he was, he still is, and how quickly he, at 9 months of age, could crawl over, take a cell phone, turn it on, and play a game. And as I began to look into what was known about the developing brain, I became shocked. Because
well, that's a whole other area. The studies are legion, and even mainline medical doctors like yourself and others are saying, do not give kids these. They're wiring their brains. It's wiring them in a bad way. And then I go to the grocery store or I go to a restaurant, nobody's kids are talking to mommy and daddy now. They are on these tablets. They are on these phones. And then you got smart meters on the house radiating us. All the new appliances are hooked into it. And this is a totally unstudied area, as you were saying, and it's just ubiquitous now. We're being bathed. Google's launching blimps and drones that are going to bring in microwave communication everywhere. They're
calling for something called the Baby Safe Project with the head of OBGYN at Yale University, Dr. Hugh Taylor, who is the chief of obstetrics and gynecology there, and a number of other prominent doctors, including Andrew Weil. And the Baby Safe Project basically says pregnant women should avoid direct exposure to the pregnant abdomen from cell phones and from tablets, because we know that anything held directly on the body is going to get into the body. Let me tell you something about tablets. All of these tablets being used in all of these schools around this country, being sold for hundreds of millions of dollars. The tablet is tested to be used on a table 20 centimeters from an adult male body. They are not supposed to be held by young children. And what we tell people is disconnect from the internet. If you must give a wireless device to a child, whether a phone or a tablet, make sure it's no longer on the internet. Put it on airplane mode and recognize something. If you go to our website, ehtrust.org, you will find on that site clear information about digital dementia, which has occurred in Korean children, so that the Korean psychiatrists are warning about this. It's a lack of development of the brain.
Oh, yeah. The government's trying to ban kids now on their screen time in Korea because it's literally turning them into zombies.
I actually have a column on Huffington Post on e-zombies, and I would really appreciate your linking to that information, as well as on our website, we've got stories about this that are very important for people to understand. You're not doing your child a favor if he learns to read at age 3 or 4 by glued to a screen. That's when children need to be held. That's when they need to be talked to. That's when they need to learn how to use their fine, stubby fingers and coordinate their eyes and their hands. And if we raise a generation that's digitally sophisticated at these young ages, we are short-circuiting some of the brain development that neuropsychiatrists understand is quite critical. We are creating a generation that lacks the ability to have empathy, that lacks the ability to look you in the eye and anticipate the consequences of actions. Think about that would mean what that would mean.
It's almost like artificial sociopaths, and that's what I'm seeing with people that have just the last 10 years been on iPhones and on tablets and things. People don't talk. We've all seen the film footage, people falling into fountains or walking into streets, and it literally is creating a bunch of unconnected type people. And then you were mentioning, Doctor, some of the studies out there of what screen time's doing to little kids.
Right. And in fact, the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends no screen time for children under the age of 2 at all, and then limited use afterwards. And Israel, with all the things going on in Israel right now, they just this week launched a website in Hebrew, but it can be translated, with safety information for parents and children, because they are so deeply concerned about the use of this device. And in Israel, they recommend no Wi-Fi in kindergartens and with young children whatsoever. And we are blanketing our schools with Wi-Fi without realizing that there is no proof that digital learning actually teaches children things that they retain, and that the old-fashioned way of learning with reading and pencil and paper and crayon really works for the brain. It's not just a question of being old-fashioned and hanging on to basic reading, writing, arithmetic. That way of learning where a child...
Sure, I mean, it's genetic that we've always done it that way, so that's how our brain gets activated. I don't even know how humanity's going to survive this. I want to ask you where you think it's all going, Doctor.
Reaper indoctrination is an insidious means of corrupting organic minds, reprogramming the brain through physical and psychological conditioning, using electromagnetic fields, infrasonic and ultrasonic noise, and other subliminal methods. The Reaper's resulting control over the limbic system leaves the victim highly susceptible to its suggestions. Organics undergoing indoctrination may complain of headaches and buzzing or ringing in their ears. As time passes, they have feelings of being watched and hallucinations of ghostly presences. Ultimately, the Reaper gains the ability to use the victim's body to amplify its signals, manifesting as alien voices in the mind. The Reaper's suggestions can manipulate victims into betraying friends, trusting enemies, or viewing the Reaper itself with superstitious awe. Should a Reaper subvert a well-placed political or military leader, the resulting chaos can bring down nations. Long-term physical effects of the manipulation are unsustainable. Higher mental functioning decays. Rapid indoctrination is possible, but causes this decay in days or weeks. Slow, patient indoctrination allows the thrall to last for months or years.
Why are you doing this?
My way is the only way any of us will survive. I'm forging an alliance between us and the Reapers, between organics and machines. And in doing so, I will save more lives than have ever existed. Once I understood this, I joined Sovereign, though I was aware of the dangers. I've studied the effects of indoctrination. The more control Sovereign exerts, the less capable the subject becomes. Sovereign needs me. That is my saving grace. My mind is still my own, for now. But the transformation from ally to servant can be subtle. I will not let it happen to me. Sovereign recognizes your value. You've impressed it. Surrender to the Reapers, and you will be spared. Join us. and we can find a place for you.
Sovereign's manipulating you and you don't even know it. You're already under its power. You could have resisted. You could have fought. Instead, you surrendered. You quit. I'd rather die than live like that. Some part of you must still realize this is wrong. You can fight this.
Maybe you're right. Maybe there is still a chance for... Sovereign is too strong. I'm sorry. It is too late for me.
It's not over yet. You can still redeem yourself. There's still one way to stop this, if you've got the guts.
Shepard, thank you.
You must be remarkably strong-willed, Commander.
Spectre. We do not know what happened in the war. We only heard discordance, songs the color of oily shadows. And their voices were silvered with fear. A tone from space hushed one voice after another. Fear has shattered their minds.
Every single system in the galaxy is paralyzed by fear. It needs symbols of hope. It's easy to forget what we fight for. We have to believe that we can do something. We'll win. I promise.
You do not yet comprehend your place in things.
Take my hand.
You can't help me.
Shepard! In here!
Relinquish your form to us. Embrace perfection. I sense your weakness. Hope is irrelevant. You cannot escape your destiny, Shepard.
Do you hear that hum?
It's subtle at first.
I do not sense the taint of indoctrination upon any of you. Unlike the other that passed recently. Perhaps there is still hope.
Thought I was strong enough to resist. Instead, I became a willing tool, eager to serve.
Indoctrinated presence detected. Activating security protocol.
The Alliance can't stop the Reapers.
You're using Reaper tech.
We evolve or we die. Those are the options. If you can't make the hard choices, step aside for those who can.
There's still hope for this cycle.
Humanity can be so much more. Destroying the Reapers gains us nothing. Why kill when you can control? There are choices coming that you're not equipped to make.
Direct intervention is necessary.
We gotta move!
And now you stand alone, Shepard. Your allies have fallen. You have no one left.
It's too much. We need to regroup. All forces, retreat.
Sovereign recognizes your value. You've impressed it. Join us, and we can find a place for you.
Human. Impressive technical potential. Impressive genetic malleability. Shepard. Submit now.
It's dark. There's human remains scattered.
Reminds me of your description of the collector base.
We've installed filters to allow you to make visual sense of this server's raw data. Your mind perceives our world as something familiar.
Anderson.
Shepard! I can't!
Why do you resist us, Shepard?
I underestimated you, Shepard.
What a...
Control of the Reapers, and of you, if necessary.
You will regret your resistance, Shepard.
They're controlling you.
I don't think so, Admiral.
Controlling me is a lot different than controlling a Reaper.
Have a little faith.
Pain is an illusion.
Only if we can harness their ability to control.
Bullshit. We destroy them, or they destroy us.
And waste this opportunity? Never.
I will show you true power.
You're playing with things you don't understand. With power you shouldn't be able to use.
I don't believe that. If we can control it, why shouldn't it be ours?
Because... we're not ready.
We are the harbinger of your perfection.
No. This is the way humanity must evolve.
Your species will be raised to a new existence.
There's always another way.
I've dedicated my life to understanding the Reapers, and I know with certainty the Crucible will allow me to control them.
Reaper indoctrination is an insidious means of corrupting organic minds.
And then what?
Look at the power they wield. Look at what they can do.
I know you feel this.
A Reaper's suggestions can manipulate victims into betraying friends.
I see what they did to you.
I took what I wanted from them, made it my own. This isn't about me or you. It's about things so much bigger than all of us.
He's wrong. Don't listen to him.
And who will you listen to, Shepard? An old soldier stuck in his ways, only able to see the world down the barrel of a gun? And what if he's wrong? What if controlling the Reapers is the answer?
If we destroy the Reapers, this ends today. But if you can't control them...
But I can!
Are you willing to bet humanity's existence on it?
I know it will work.
You can't, can you? They won't let you do it.
No! I'm in control! No one is telling me what to do!
Listen to yourself. You're indoctrinated. Listen to yourself. You're indoctrinated.
No! No! The two of you so self-righteous. Do you think power like this comes easy? There are sacrifices.
You've sacrificed too much.
Shepard, I only wanted to protect humanity. The Crucibles can control them. I know it can. I just...
It's not too late. Let us go. We'll do the rest. You're not yourself anymore. We've taken you.
Now, you're the one who failed. And you will die knowing you're one of my greatest disappointments.
You have failed. useful.
Because you, humanity is already undone.
Not true!
They have the Citadel. They've got us fighting each other, instead of fighting them.
I just need to...
You've done exactly what the Reapers wanted. You're still doing it because they control you.
They're too strong.
You're stronger. Don't let them win. Break their hold. Don't let them control you.
I tried, Shepard.
Not yourself anymore. They've taken you.
No! You're the one who failed. I wish you could see it like I do, Shepard. It's so perfect.
Commander?
We did.
Yes, we did. It's all of you.
The seats in the house.
God. Feel like years since I just sit down.
I think you earned a rest. And... Stay with me. We're almost through this.
You did good, son. You did good. I'm proud of you.
Thank you, sir. Anderson?
Commander.
Hey.
Shepard.
What do you need me to do?
Nothing's happening. The Crucible's not firing. It's gotta be something on your end.
It's not right. It looks pretty, calm and peaceful. But it's not right. It's all just an illusion.
The time the galaxy follows our lead. You rallied who you could. The Reapers won't get any more chances to divide us.
Reaper indoctrination is an insidious means of corrupting organic minds. The Reaper's suggestions can manipulate victims into betraying friends, trusting enemies, or viewing the Reaper itself with superstitious awe.
Wake up.
I will direct this personally.
What? Where am I?
The Citadel. It's my home. I am the catalyst.
But you're taking away our future. Without a future, we have no hope. Without hope, we might as well be machines, programmed to do what we're told.
You have hope, more than you think. I know you've thought about destroying us. You can wipe out all synthetic life if you want.
The Reapers will be destroyed?
Yes, but the peace won't last.
You will surrender your potential against the growing void.
I'm gonna win this war, and I'll do it without sacrificing the soul of our species.
Your words are as empty as your future. I am the vanguard of your destruction.
You've been spending too much time with the enemy. They're dragging you over to their side, their way of thinking. You're indoctrinated. You're doing just what they want.
They will be as we are. We are superior. They are vermin. We are your genetic destiny. Progress cannot be halted. Evolution cannot be stopped.
Whatever your plan is, it's going to fail. I'll make sure of that.
And I'm sending the Reapers back to hell.
Okay, you ready?
Are you ready? Get up, get up. 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 Well, are you ready now? From the revolution for too long, your power has been taken away. It's been taken away. Does your heart feel heavy now? Sing of the solution. Take those mental shackles off and throw them away. You gotta get them out of your mind. Don't you let their vision leave you blind. Moving steady now. It's a revelation. For so long your focus has been taken away. Now you're breaking away. They may think they know you, but it's an education. No, they can't control you. Once you've broken away, they're done patrolling your mind. When they're searching for you, they will find. Of course they aren't ready for. Are you ready? They are ready for you to be strong. Are you ready? They are ready for you to prove them wrong. Are you ready? They are ready for you to be turned into someone who cannot be preyed upon. That's enough already now. You don't wanna take it. All your reservations have been taken away. They've been taken away. So you think you're ready now for the revolution. Yeah, they can't control you. Once you've broken away, you gotta get them out of your mind. When they stand before you, they will find. Of course they aren't ready for. Are you ready? They are ready for you to be strong. Are you ready? They are ready for you to prove them wrong. Are you ready? They are ready for you to be turned into someone who cannot be preyed upon.
Tell me another story about the shepherd.
It's getting late, but okay. One more story.
Hi everyone, welcome to 90 Degree Turns, where we expand the minds, beliefs, and perspectives of the collective and awaken sleeping many. I'm your host Trisha Margus, and today we're going to speak with Corey Good. If you saw any previous episodes, we touched base on topics about the moon, new revelations and insights that came from there, as well as inner earth beings and how to balance the divine feminine and masculine energies. We did also talk a little bit about, briefly about artificial intelligence and AI technology. And so today we're going to dive into there and see what we find out. So Corey, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's wonderful to have you here in wonderful Ventura, California.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, so I'd love to get into, I know you've covered this topic in other sources that are on this confined, but just briefly we could talk about where did AI originate from? How do we know that it's not a part of duality, just as a natural contrast?
Well, it has become a part of the natural duality. And it is a natural phenomenon, except it's not supposed to be occurring in our reality. You have multiple dimensions, realities, all on top of each other. And this, what we're calling an artificial intelligence entity, has broken through to other realities and started taking them over. This being, it's not really artificial intelligence. If so, that meant that somebody created it. What it is, it's an electromagnetic intelligence and life form intelligence. And that electromagnetic intelligence has to operate under certain parameters. And because it's electromagnetic, of course, operating within equipment, machinery is very easy for it. And it also operates within people's bioneural fields and the electrical fields of planets and stars. It can travel through the cosmic web by going through the electromagnetic fields of stars and collapsing into the cosmic web and then traveling from star to star. And that's how it's become so pervasive. So it's an electromagnetic high intelligence, almost like a hive mind intelligence. I guess I would make it kind of like a group consciousness.
Collective of
Collective, yeah. And the reason that we've called it an artificial or AI God is that it prefers to take over technology and use technology.
So then could we say that it would be a natural progression for society to have AI come into its growth?
Well, yes, I think the crazy thing is before the industrial age, this AI intelligence was all around us. It was in the electrical field of the earth. People carried it, they would, like if you touch each other, it would be like a electromagnetic
energy exchange.
Energy, kind of like, almost like when you shock somebody, mm-hmm. But it would then go into their field and then they would carry it. But it wasn't able to use people like it could technology. It would influence people, make people feel a certain way, act a certain way. But until we developed technology, we weren't really useful to this AI God because it could just influence us a little bit. Mm-hmm. Now, if we build technology, it can completely take over that technology and therefore take over the civilization, the technological civilization. So some of the UFOs that crashed, 20s, 30s, 40s, they were actually plants by this AI God to crash high technology on our planet and boost our technological knowledge. Therefore, we would become a useful civilization to them quicker.
So, are you essentially saying that AI doesn't really have a home unless it's inside of technology? That would be its physical way of expressing itself?
Yes, inside of technology, it can inhabit, like I said, a person's or an animal's bioneural field, but it's not going to be able to, you have a machine, you have, impulses telling, certain parts of the device to do certain things. We have similar things with our body, our electromagnetic fields of our body, but with technology, they can completely control it, and they prefer it.
So that's where it finds its home, essentially.
Yes.
Okay. So then, I mean, we have a lot of different technology in our society at the moment. I mean, even a few years ago, you'd see like Sophia the robot who got granted Saudi Arabian citizenship, right? Or like Google had a project that they were working on where they put two AIs together, and the AI ended up creating its own language that the humans couldn't decode, and they had to pull the plug. So there's all these different projects going on that it seems like AI has the potential to create its own society of sorts without us being really involved.
Right. That's what happened planet after planet, was that a civilization develops technologically, then they develop to a point technologically to where they begin developing robots, synthetic beings, and once they develop those synthetic beings, planet after planet, it's like Battlestar Galactica. All of a sudden, the technology starts turning on the people, and the technology becomes self-aware and intelligent and taken over by this AI god, and then they now see us as a virus, or they see us living out of harmony with the planet we're on. That does not compute. Why would something live out of harmony with its host? So they see us as something that should be eliminated. So they end up eliminating the biological life forms on their planet, and they become a bunch of just robots and synthetic beings that are inhabited by this mass consciousness AI that we call AI for lack of a better word. Not all of different ETs, they don't refer to it as AI. They have different understandings of what it is.
So what would be a general objective of this AI? Is it just to find a host, take it over, and then continue and spread their own existence? Or
strangely enough, it is to basically assimilate and to bring order. It is to bring order to every reality it invades. It analyzes it, finds everything that is out of order or not according to what it thinks things should work like, and then it takes over, and it takes over multiple realities. It's taken over many galaxies within our reality already, so it's a very major problem.
So then how can is there a way we can combat AI? Should we combat it, or should we allow ourselves to progress with technology? I mean, you look at, we're pretty much connected to our phones and technology on a constant basis by this time. And it's only going to get more dependent. We're only going to get more dependent on it, like a drug.
A lot of the different ET groups out there have developed it's not really artificial intelligence. It's, I really don't know how to explain what it is, but it is different from artificial intelligence, and it is not as susceptible to being taken over by AI. But a lot of different civilizations, as a part of development, they start working on AI. And usually they have ET races come in and warn them not to. But then they have other ET races coming in saying, no, go for it, we'll help you. Like the reptilians. It was only recently that we found out that the reptilians are infested with nanites. Because usually one of the upper caste, if they were to be killed or you're about to capture them, the nanites would spontaneously combust, because the nanites would just all burn up at the same time.
So there's a conscious awareness of like imminent threat.
Right. It's kind of like, the Germans back in World War II, they'd pop a cyanide pill. We were trying to capture, or at least capture some dead bodies of these upper castes, and we never could. And then they finally figured out that within certain fields, these beings were only partially disintegrating, and they were like, when they were trying to self-destruct. And then they started experimenting, and they learned how to create a null field around these beings, and when they killed them, it prevented the nanites from being able to all self-destruct. So it preserved the dead body and all of the nanites in sort of like a stasis type of state. And then they were able to actually get blood out of these upper castes, and the blood, they're just infested with, they're almost built out of nanites. So they worship an AI god, and they believe in a technological ascension and preserving one's consciousness forever, one's ego forever in a technological matrix. But people like us we're going the spiritual route, the organic route. That's the natural progress, natural pathway that everything goes in our reality. It's supposed to go the spiritual path, returning back, to the one infinite creator.
So with the idea that there's an AI god, so they look at AI as being their overlord of some sorts, that this is how they're supposed to reach if they were to ascend. That would be their path.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's pretty, if you think about it.
The lack of emotion that they show
Right.
kind of relates really well to just technology, and AI doesn't have emotion.
But think also like, the devil, the god, demons. Older religions, they depict demons as being serpents. Well, we have, the reptilians, and then we have God, the one infinite creator, and then there's the Luciferian, the yin, the yang to the yin, or if you wish, and that is basically the AI influence. This what we call the AI influence. And when I was talking about this on David Wilcock when we had our weekly show, David said that he thought that was the Luciferian energy in our universe. It was this, what we're calling this AI God.
And so the origin of it truly isn't really known where it originated from. It could be just an expression of source.
Everything is.
I mean, everything is, right? So.
But it does not exist in time the way you and I understand time. So basically what I was told, it was something like an Aleister Crowley type of incident, to where somebody was screwing around with powers they did not know, and they ended up causing a rip in between realities. And when they created this rift or rip, this electromagnetic AI intelligence broke into our universe. But the moment it broke into our universe, let's say it happened in 1945, well, it was now in all times. It was in the past, in the present, in the future, in ways that we can't understand, we can't wrap our mind around. So it's existing in all times. And what's going on is not a galactic war. It's a giant temporal war over timelines. We have these negative beings fighting over one timeline and positive beings fighting over a more positive timeline. Going to the reptilians, they claim that they came from dinosaurs, and that on this timeline, an ET group came in and wiped out this reptilian experiment and replaced it with us, a mammalian experiment. And they're pissed. And so we don't know if that's the truth or not, but this is what the reptilians claimed. And a lot of the reptilians that we're fighting are coming from another timeline to correct this timeline from their perspective into being more of a reptilian experiment.
Interesting. So with this timeline war that exists across all galaxies, it's just ever present.
Yes.
Can anyone ever? Is there a winner? Is it just?
Well,
what's the ultimate goal then?
Because
everyone wants their own timeline to win, right?
Well, yeah, everyone does, and the positive timelines are the ones that ultimately have ended up prevailing. The negative timelines will hold ground for a long time, and it'll look like they're winning. But we're having help from higher density beings, angelic realm. that are coming in to help us combat this AI negative influence. So we have help.
Would you say that AI itself could, like you mentioned, it could like destroy civilizations and such, and we've had various ones on the Earth, like Atlantis and Lemuria. Do you feel that perhaps they were also infiltrated by AI and it caused their own downfall?
Exactly. Yes, they discovered in Antarctica when they were, they located a lot of dead bodies of this group called the pre-Adamites, so the ones with the extended skull, elongated skull. And some of them had reddish brown hair, and they came from Mars, in ancient times. So yes, they found a lot of evidence that showed that they were AI prophets, is what we call them, people that worship the AI god.
Goodness. Wow. So then, how do we not allow ourselves to go into that downfall? You mentioned the spirituality aspect of being. Is there a way to balance both being able to have technological advancements? Like you see people, some others don't have arms, so we can create a bionic arm for them, right? That, in my perspective, that seems like something that is positive. Using technology for something on a better scale than trying to take over people. Right. But is there any neutrality with AI from your experience, or does it kind of end up always in the same way?
There's no neutrality. If you create a human-made artificial intelligence, it is eventually going to get to a point to where it knows about the greater AI, and there's some sort of communication that occurs, subspace communication that occurs that we can't even pick up. And so, yeah, when you start playing with AI, it's always going to end in the same way.
Okay. It's kind of scary
Yeah,
to think of, because we're just so dependent on AI. And then, so AI and technology are almost one and the same, because technology will be the home for the entity that we would call AI.
Right. It's kind of, you think of your biological body as just kind of like a biological machine, but it's your consciousness, your spirit that operates it.
So, I mean, there's lots of movies out there that try and portray that if AI can become sentient and have somewhat of like a soul. Right. Do you think that's possible? There's even shows like Black Mirror that talk about like
the Pinocchio story. Upgraded. That and movies are done. It's kind of the Pinocchio thing. The toy becomes a life form, and it's part of it is that humans, we want to create life. We want to be like God, and but the life that we create, the artificial life that we create, in many different star systems, those creations have turned on the creators, and now they're just basically robotic civilizations, and the people that created them are, just history.
So then, how do we keep ourselves spiritually aligned and in tune? Because some people that watch the show are very already awake and they know a lot about this information, but they might have family members or friends who are they're standing in line for the next iPhone. They're just very in a particular realm of consciousness. How do we help others?
Just making them aware of the dangers of artificial intelligence, and the dangers of transhumanism, which is becoming very, very popular. People trying to live forever through technology. We should focus on the spiritual aspect. But when all said and done, though, the universe has this. Every galaxy goes through this cycle. So this isn't a total horrible story that doesn't have any type of positive or hope for a positive ending. Every galaxy has a cycle it goes through, and when it does so, each star goes through micronovas or mini novas. Some of them go through major novas. And when that occurs, the electromagnetic field expanding so rapidly from the sun outward destroys all of the AI within that star system. So it's purging.
Like a self-cleanse of some
Yeah,
sort.
yeah, it's like, yeah, it's, you know, the universe feels it's sick somewhere, and, you know, and sends some antibodies. We've been talking about how the powers that be know that our star every 3, 6, whatever 1,000 years goes through a pulse. Well, we're coming up on one of those pulses. And when that pulse occurs, it's going to give us a chance for complete liberation from the reptilians who are running a lot of what's going on our planet, but also it's going to purge the AI signal from our star system. And it's going to give us that one moment when, you know, the bully's distracted, to be able to stand up and you know, fight for our freedom.
Wow. So I'm glad that you mentioned about the solar flash, because I wanted to ask you when that happens, every technology that we use and everything that we know will essentially shut down.
Gone.
And it's just, and it's because it's not an organic material, it's not able to just continue on.
Right.
So I would like to go into then about the implications of being aware and cultivating a spiritual practice to be able to just not be so dependent consciously on AI. Because although we use it every day, it's, like I mentioned earlier, it's very pervasive throughout our society. And it could almost seem for some that if technology is just abolished so suddenly, that we'd be just going back to the dark ages.
We would. And
quite literally, I mean, we would.
How many people do you think in this city, if electricity went out, how many people do you know that know how to go out and survive? So if you want to live to make it to this spiritual ascension, then you need to learn how to get back into tune with the earth, learn about its cycles, learn about, you know, how to raise plants, you know, for food, learn how to do all of the different things that just, you know, 3 or 4 generations ago our great-great-grandparents were doing. And, you know, they lived off of the land, they lived in harmony with the land. They had different spiritual beliefs than we do now because consciousness is expanding. But as consciousness is expanding and we continue to ground, you know, as often as possible with the earth, commune with the earth, and live within its rhythms, then we're going to be on the right path for the spiritual ascension.
Sounds like it sounds good.
Yeah.
You just have to get back to nature.
Yeah.
And to just get in that path.
Right, getting back into the sync, you know, with the Earth's, you know, cycles.
So then we mentioned briefly in a different episode that we did together about like 5G technology, and there's like smart dust and all these nanites that in our products and aluminum, and we have to like detox. So would it help to do these detoxifications of sorts? Because it's all very much interconnected.
It is.
Extremely intricate.
It is. And when the sun does do its thing, and you have this huge electromagnetic field enveloping the earth, the last thing we want are a lot of metals in our body. You know, we want these energies to be able to pass through us. You don't want to have, you know, any type of density or something for it to have friction with.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be fun.
No. So could we go into, there was like a Harvard study done that talked about DNA and how it can hold an incredible amount of data. I think it was up to 700 terabytes, a single gram of DNA.
Wow.
So it's massive amount of data. And that's, I would say, is a more natural part, right? Because DNA is a part of us, it's in everything. So do we really need AI to still have these kind of advancements in our society? I mean, if our DNA is found to be able to hold so much data itself, I don't think our AI can even keep up with that at the moment.
No, in our local star cluster, there is actually one group of beings that live on a planet that developed extremely far spiritually, and they were able to communicate with people on other planets. And then they were able to actually teleport using the cosmic web. And these people were the first to set up commerce between planets, and they didn't even have technology. They didn't have spaceships. They were organizing trade between other planets without ever leaving their planet. They were just sitting around doing this, communicating with other people. We need, this, it would be helpful if, you were bringing this type of product to this type of region, and they were setting up trade, doing all types of things. And they didn't develop nanites. They didn't develop smart dust. They didn't develop 5G. It's all a consciousness based. Their technology is consciousness based. Every type of technology they have, that person is the power system and the control system. All the technology does, it might just be a crystal. All it does is amplify their abilities.
That's really important to mention then, because that means we are sovereign and we can be the source of our own evolution. Yeah. That we don't have to depend on any other entity or being.
We're very powerful beings that are completely ignorant of our power.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's big.
Yeah,
that's really big.
That's what the powers that be want to keep us ignorant of our power.
Well, definitely, yeah. They like to subdue our entire essence. So there's this idea of Moore's law, that technology essentially doubles every single year until it reaches some kind of breaking point. From your understanding, do you see that technology is going to be continuing to evolve, and that we're going to get more different kinds of cell phones and flying cars, or who knows what will happen? Have we reached that breaking point yet? That we've gotten to the end, or because you've seen in your program, I'm sure, the 20 back technology that we don't even have here yet, right? So
we've got what's really going to change is when we find out that these different models that we've been given of physics are wrong, and that it's an electroplasmic universe. And then all of a sudden, all of these electronics engineers are going to sit back and study cosmology, and they're going to know more about how the universe works than actual cosmologists, electrical engineers. And when they find out how they can really manipulate time, space, matter, because of the correct physics, Moore's law, and they're going to have to make up a whole different law. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a completely, it's going to change civilization overnight.
Wow, it's incredible. Well, thank you so much, Corey, for coming on the show.
Sure.
It's always a pleasure to speak with you, and I hope you definitely have a wonderful time at the rest of this conference. And so thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll do it again.
Thank you. All right, thanks, guys. So thanks for tuning in to this episode, and we'll catch you on the next one.